Teacher Talking Sports, what it does, what it do, how we living. With the MLB regular season coming to a close, I'm going to do an video that I always like to do. It's my all mostly went undrafted fantasy baseball team. Now, how do I decide if a guy went undrafted? I took the website Fantasy Pros, which takes the consensus average draft position from 6 different websites, including ESPN, Yahoo, averages them out. If the guy's average draft position was over 300, he was eligible to be on this list. That's because in a 25 round league with 12 players, 300 players are drafted all together. I did last week my all disappointment fantasy baseball team. Now this is let's end on a more positive note with the guys who achieved better than anyone expected heading into the season. I'll name a catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, 3 outfielders, 5 starting pitchers, and a relief pitcher. And I tried to keep the guys at the position they mostly played. But let's get started with catcher. We're going to go with Shea Langoliers of the Oakland Athletics. I mean, that 224 batting average didn't help his owners in that category. But where he helped more so than almost every catcher in the league was in the power departments, as Langoliers had 29 homers on this season and 80 RBIs, again, amongst the league leaders in catchers in both of these categories, 58 runs as well. Langoliers is my catcher. I'll name some other guys I considered at the end of the video. But first base was the toughest one to choose. There really wasn't a candidate that stood out to me. So in the end, I'm going to go with Jake Cronenworth, and I think first base is really the only position where I had a tough time picking someone. But Cronenworth, 82 RBIs on the season, 72 runs, 17 homers. So, it's not like he put up pedestrian average numbers, but 243 batting average. If walks are a stat in your league, 61, not bad. But again, first base, really no one that stood out. Second base, we're going to go with Bryce Terang of the Milwaukee Brewers, and Terang was quite proficient at stealing bases this year. He had 50 on the year, putting him amongst the league leaders. Last year, couldn't hit a lick in his rookie season, just a 218 batting average. Much more respectable, 254 this season, 72 runs scored as well. Shortstop, even though he hasn't played even half this season, he has been awesome, especially in 2 or 3 categories. That is Xavier Edwards of the Miami Marlins. No, he hits for no power, just 1 homer, but in his 69 games, I should also say, all stats I mentioned are through Saturday, September 28th games, but the 326 batting average, 31 stolen bases in 69 games. 38 runs scored. Those are 3 categories. He has really helped out his owners, and even 26 RBIs. You prorate that over 162 games. That's probably close to around 70 RBIs. So Xavier Edwards definitely has been a guy who has helped many people in their batting average and stolen base departments. Third base, a guy who didn't start the year in the majors. The Mets went with Brett Beatty. Instead, Mark Vientos took over that third base job, and another guy who had produced in the power categories as he blasted 27 homers and 70 runs batted in 109 games. So you prorate that over 162. That's around 40 homers on the year. 267 batting average. Vientos has been awesome for the New York Mets. My 3 outfielders, name in alphabetical order by last name. Let's start with Lawrence Butler of the Oakland Athletics. Now, Butler has put up pretty good numbers on the year. 262 batting average, 22 homers, 18 stolen bases. He is mostly on here, though, because of how awesome his post All-Star break was. So if we look at his 61 games after the All-Star break, Butler batted 300 with 13 of his 22 homers and 12 of his 18 stolen bases. Was a guy who didn't play every day, didn't start every game before the All Star break, and since then has really been one of the game's better hitters. So he makes it mostly for what he did after the All Star break. Next outfielder is Brenton Doyle of the Colorado Rockies. Much like Terrain, last year was his rookie year. Couldn't hit at all, batting just 203. We knew he was a superb fielder, evidenced by winning a Gold Glove as a rookie. But this year he became a much better hitter. Saw his batting average go up 57 points to 260. More than doubled his homers from 10 to 23. Also stole 30 bases, scored 82 runs, drove in 72. Doyle really was pretty good at all categories in fantasy baseball. And the third outfielder, we're going to go with Jurickson Profar of the San Diego Padres. At one time was a super highly rated prospect. Had some pretty good seasons, but was terrible last year, really, with the Rockies. Joined the Padres late, but this year, a first time All Star, and he batted 280, 24 homers, 94 runs scored, 85 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases. So, easily a career season for a guy who made his major league debut way back in 2012. Let's look at the five starting pitchers. Again, going alphabetical quarter by last name, starting with Garrett Crochet of the Chicago White Sox. Crochet, we know how bad the White Sox were, setting a record for most losses in a season. So because of that, he only had 6 wins in his 32 starts, but otherwise was awesome. 3.58 ERA, 209 strikeouts in 146 innings, a very good 1.07 whip. Now, his innings were limited toward the end of the season as he had never pitched anywhere near this much. But from April to July was really one of fantasy's best pitchers of the season. Next, let's go with Jack Flaherty, originally with the Tigers and was traded to the Dodgers. With the two teams in 28 starts, won 13 games, 3.17 ERA, well more than a strikeout an inning, 194 in 162 innings, and a 1.07 whip. Flaherty few years back looked like one of the game's great young pitchers, finishing fourth in NL Cy Young voting in 2019. Then had some injury-plagued years, didn't quite look like the same pitcher. But now at the age of 28, soon to be 29, Flaherty again looks to be one of the game's better pitchers in the league. Next, let's go with rookie Luis Gil of the New York Yankees. Now, Gil's last start was not a good one, really his last 2 starts, but may win AL Rookie of the Year, as in his 29 starts, he won more than half of them as he went 15-7, a 3.50 ERA. Yes, he walked a ton of batters, but had a great batting average against, which led his whip to be a very good 1.19. Also struck out well more than a batter per inning, 171 and 151 and 2/3 innings. Reynaldo Lopez of the Atlanta Braves really hadn't been a starter, full-time starter since 2020, had been pitching in relief the past few seasons. Braves brought him in to be a starter, and boy, has he been good. 25 starts this year. Unfortunately, just 8 wins, but a 2 ERA on the dot, 146 strikeouts and 134 and 2/3 innings. A very good 1.1 whip for the first time All-Star this season. The 5th starter is Sean Manaea of the New York Mets. Manaea now 32 years old and arguably the best season of his career. 12 wins in his 32 starts, a 3.47 ERA. 184 strikeouts and 181 and two-thirds innings, so a little more than a strikeout per inning, and a 1.08 whip. And Mania, maybe not great in his last start, but has pitched even better since the All Star break, and probably helped a lot of people make the playoffs in their fantasy league. Just amazingly, just a 185 batting average against in the second half of the season. So there you have it. That is my all mostly went undrafted fantasy baseball team for 2024. Did any of these guys help you out this season? Who were some waiver wire pickups you made that panned out? And yes, let me say that I realize some of these guys were drafted in fantasy baseball leagues, but that's why it's called the all mostly went undrafted team. Some other guys I considered: catcher Ryan Jeffers, Connor Wong. First base, again, no real viable options. Maybe like a Michael Bush. Second base, Rafaela of the Boston Red Sox. Shortstop, Mason Wynn. Tyler Fitzgerald. Um, a little more pop than Xavier Edwards, but Edwards had him beat out easily in batting average and steals. Third base, Jordan Westberg was definitely someone I considered greatly. Outfield, Jake McCarthy, James Wood, Colton Cowser, Victor Robles, some other starting pitchers, Ranger Suarez, Eric Fetty, and Tanner Hawk. And then relief pitchers, Jason Foley and Aroldis Chapman. But yes, always enjoy doing these. I do them for NFL and NBA as well when those seasons come to an end. Anyhow, don't forget to subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend to subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit the bell for notifications. I'm out. The relief pitcher is Kirby Yates of the Texas Rangers. What an incredible season has been for him, while the Rangers were a bit of a disappointment, not able to defend their World Series championship. Yates, now 37 years old, has had a season that has looked like some of his past ones, where he was seen as one of the game's best relief pitchers. A microscopic 1.17 ERA, 33 saves, 85 strikeouts, and 61 and two-thirds innings, a 0.83 whip. Didn't pitch in 2021. 2022 only pitched in 9 games. 2020 only pitched in 6 games. Played well for the Braves last year, but this season somewhat came out of nowhere, since 2019 was really the last time he had been seen amongst the game's top relief pitchers.